Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are located in this big wide world. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this webinar with Mayank Bisht. We're getting a little bit of a late start. We apologize for that. We had some technical difficulties getting everybody connected, but we're here now, and we will go a little long so that we can make sure that we accommodate everybody's questions, even in spite of our a little bit of a late start here. Today we're talking about AWS S3 and Glacier together. It's the best of both worlds. AWS S3, of course, is a storage cloud for the internet. Glacier is an archival service. Amazon's S3 is a paid service and is used by many businesses for quick access to content across the internet, but many times companies are facing a situation where content is not frequently accessed. Could Glacier be the solution? So today we're going to present you an overview of the AWS S3 and Glacier platforms and talk about which of the two to use under different circumstances. Now, if you're not familiar with our presenter, Mayank has more than 8 years of experience in the IT industry. He's a seasoned professional with experience in product development and end-to-end implementation with a focus on client engagement, solution design and delivery, scope, and resource management. He is, of course, AWS Certified Solutions Architect with experience in cloud architecture and RFP, RFI responses for cloud. Before we get rolling, though, just real quickly, I want to make sure everybody is familiar with their dashboards and is hearing me okay. So do me a favor really quick and find the questions module on your dashboard and just type in a hello to Mayank for me and just let him know that you're excited to get rolling and you're happy that he's here. And that way, when I see you saying hi in the questions module, I'll know for sure you're hearing me and I'm not just speaking into the darkness. There we go. Fantastic. I see a couple of people saying hello. Anukul, happy to have you here. Sujit from India, fantastic. So it's evening for you. Thank you. Ranjit, thank you for letting me know you're hearing me. That's good. And pay attention to that questions module because as we go through this presentation, which will run about 35 or 40 minutes, you can just ask your questions there in the questions module and we will loop back around after the presentation and hit as many of your questions as we can to make sure that we answer everything you need to have answered. If you want to share on social, you're free to do so. Go ahead and live tweet, of course, if you hear something super awesome and wise and insightful that you want to share with your audience. Go ahead and tweet or Facebook or go to LinkedIn and post or whatever makes you happy. And if you want, you can use the hashtag SLWebinars. All right, that's certainly all you need to hear from me. I'm going to turn this over to my friend Mayank, and he's going to take care of laying down the wisdom for you here today on AWS and Glacier. Mayank, it's all yours, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the warm welcome. Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for joining here. We will be talking, as we've already told, we'll be talking about S3 and Glacier today. Both of them are actually different classes of storage for the same thing, but the scenarios when they are used, that really differs, and it's very important for us to understand when to use which one. Many of the times people do commit mistakes and because they do not understand it fully. So the intention here in this webinar would be that we will try to cover in what way S3 works. We'll try to understand what are the advantages of using that, what are the typical usage scenarios. We'll also try to understand how the pricing works for S3. And then we'll go to Glacier. We'll try to understand the same in that case, and then we'll do a small comparison, and we'll try to conclude clearly that when we should be using which one. All right. So Amazon's S3, simple storage service. This is one of the, I would say, one of the oldest AWS services, right? So it got started a long time back in the year 2006 itself, and this is actually an object storage where you can go ahead and store any type of your files, and businesses around the world, they're using S3 for a variety of purposes, right? Now, it is very important to understand, though, to start with, that what is the difference between an object level storage and a block level storage. There are other AWS storage services like EBS, EFS, etc., which are block level storage, where the operations are possible at block level. Whereas S3 is an object level storage, meaning the operations which are possible on this particular storage type are going to be there at object level, meaning at the whole file level. Which means if you modify a particular file or an object and you try to put it again, you need to basically replace that whole file, right? So do not go ahead and use this as the disk of your EC2. That's not what it is meant for, right? It is architected itself to be natively online, so that you can access it over HTTP or HTTPS protocol. You can store any amount of data on S3 from any time, anytime and anywhere you can access it. It is highly scalable, reliable, fast, and durable. Fully managed service from AWS, where you do not have to worry about deciding on the size. That you don't have to plan beforehand, right? It's not like some of the other storage services. Like when you normally create an EBS volume, do you decide that whether it should be 500 GB or it should be a TB or more, right? You do not have to plan here. You as soon as you get any amount of data, you can put it on S3, and you do not have to worry about its durability at all. S3 gives you a durability of, I'm really sorry, I think, okay. So S3 gives you durability of 11 nines, which is 99.9 times 9%, which means the chances of losing your object once you have put it on S3, that's really, really impossible, right? And this type of durability at really cheap cost, right? That is what is making S3 popular among businesses, and they have started using S3 as one of their extension, to save all types of data. With availability of 99.99% over a given year. Now, it's important to understand that what type of or what size of objects can you save on S3? You can save objects of up to 5 terabytes, meaning one file can be of maximum size of up to 5 terabytes, right? In addition to that, there's no bucket size limit. So you actually put all your objects in form of bucket. So bucket is the first logical entity which you create in S3, and there after that you can go ahead and put your objects. You can also categorize your objects in the form of folders inside that. There is no limitation on the number of objects which you can have. So you can, it's basically literally kind of unlimited storage. So you do not plan, and AWS internally takes care that it continuously monitors the service and continues to add more and more amount of storage, so that you never run out of storage, basically, right? You have HTTP and HTTPS endpoints in place. It is recommended that you use HTTPS so that all the data which is coming and going to S3 is always encrypted. It is highly scalable, as we talked about it already. Whenever you put any data on S3, it gets replicated automatically across minimum of 3 availability zones, which means you can be sure that even if a complete availability zone goes down, you are not going to lose your data. It is going to be available for you. You have optional server-side encryption available. If you want, you can enable that, and in that scenario, you will have all the data encrypted on S3. You will have all the data available on S3 in encrypted format. It gives you option to use a key coming from KMS, key management service, or you can use your own keys as well, like customer provided key as well. You can be used. It has facilities of logging. If you enable logging, all the access logs get created, that who used the bucket and did what, right? And you can very well use it later on for all the auditing purposes. And of course, for all the different type of operations, be it putting an object, deleting an object, getting an object from S3, you have standard REST and SOAP interfaces available. Some of the use case scenarios, in what way are people using S3? It is primarily, I would say, a lot of portion gets used for storage and backup and application file hosting. As you know, but along with that, in today's market, a lot of businesses have started using S3 for hosting all their media files, be it audio files or video files, because it works great, right? For example, you have a website where you have got some really high definition video files which you are displaying there. You do not have to plan for really heavy servers to host that. Instead of that, take your files, put it on S3, maybe put CloudFront as well in between, and with that you can stream it. Doesn't matter how much your audience audience base grows. You do not have to go ahead and do anything further. Your S3 scales up well, and it would be able to support the bandwidth required to stream that all your videos. That's really good for that. Software delivery, people are delivering all their software set of files on S3, and AWS uses S3 internally to store all your AMIs and therefore EBS snapshots as well. A lot of users, you can actually run a complete static website just out of S3, right? Without hosting any server at all. That is perfectly possible. And nowadays, with the latest introduction of AWS Lambda, you can very well do a dynamic website as well on this. Let me give you an example. Some of you might have visited the website udemy.com. It is a website where you can go and learn. You can watch different video tutorials and basically learn stuff. Udemy is totally there on AWS and uses S3 and Lambda alone for the whole thing to run. Now that is not just a static website. It has got a lot of other functionalities like login, account creation, all of that, and they are able to do that just with the help of S3 and Lambda without running any other servers. Really great stuff. Moving on, you need to understand properly that how the pricing works. In case of S3, there are three factors which decide that what would be your monthly price. First of all, no minimum fee. So you start and you put your data, the amount of data which you put, based on that, the cost gets decided, right? So the first factor is the storage. How much space or how much storage are you consuming on S3? Second is how many API requests are you doing, right? So there are a number of free API requests which you get free every month. Over and above that, if you do more, there is a pricing slot for that. You can refer that in the documentation. That is how it gets priced. In addition to these two things, how much is the data transfer out from S3? So you can probably host one of your videos, like the example which we had taken earlier, and people continue to watch that. So data transfer out is happening from your S3. You get charged for that, right? And there will be a small variation in the price between different regions. So please look for the region which is closest to your audience, plus which has got the lowest cost, of course. Some concepts to know quickly about S3 further. S3 stores data as objects within buckets, which we talked about already. An object is composed of a file and optionally any metadata that describes that file, right? So that is what an object is. It's essentially a file, plus in addition to that, some metadata about it. There's a limitation that you can have only 100 buckets in an account. And of course, you can control access either to a bucket or to objects inside that with the help of various policies. Going a bit deeper in the S3. Now, if you create a bucket, let's say the bucket name is doc, and you go ahead and create a folder within that called 2006-03-01, and then you put an HTML file within that. This is how the URL gets formed for your object. Remember, sometime back we were talking that you can actually host a complete website out of S3, right? So that is possible because any object which you put on S3 can be accessed over a URL, right? So this is how it becomes, and which also gives you an idea why the bucket name should be unique. Yes. All right. So people might be worried about security at times. You need not be, because AWS has planned around the security of S3 in a really serious way. You have different options to secure your S3 bucket. You can use ACL, access control lists, bucket policies, and identity and access management. Now there are different uses of all. You can go ahead and use bucket policies when you have to give cross-account access. You can go ahead and use ACLs when you want to give access within the account to different users, and IAM policies are used when you want to do all the policy, or you want to keep all the policies and permissions at a centralized place, not only for S3 but for other AWS services as well. You can upload or download data to Amazon S3 via SSL encrypted endpoints. It is recommended as well. Please use HTTPS. And of course, encryption is possible using AWS SDK. AWS S3 also gives you versioning facility, right? Now, many other times it happens that you might be, you might end up deleting a file by mistake, right? Or purposefully you want to do version management. People go ahead and use tools like SVN, etc. For that. That might not be exactly equal to SVN, but if you enable versioning, it saves you from a lot of stuff, right? So what you do is you enable versioning, and then Amazon S3 maintains different versions of your object. So let's say you have a file today called photo.gif, and then you upload a modified version of this file tomorrow. Both the versions of this file would be maintained with different internal IDs, right? Even if you go ahead and delete a particular file, it is only soft delete, and it is not actually deleted, right? It is also important to understand that with versioning, your cost increases, but at the same time, you get the benefit that you do not lose any file accidentally. There can be three states of an Amazon S3 bucket. Unversion, which is default, right? When you create a new bucket, versioning is not enabled. After that, if you want, you can go ahead and enable the versioning. Once you enable the versioning, you cannot stop it. You can suspend it, but you cannot basically disable it, right? Okay, so let's talk about some of the web storage stuff. This is a problem for one of the organization where they want to deliver large files from a web server, and that is actually becoming a problem in terms of network latency. User-generated content needs to be distributed across all your web servers. The solution: store all your static asset files in Amazon S3 and deliver the files from there. Now, that asset files can be as small as your CSS or JavaScript files, and it can be also the huge files like your MP3s or your video files, all of those files, right? And objects that are stored in Amazon S3 can be accessed directly by users if set to being public. So you have this option that you can go ahead and change the visibility of an Amazon S3 object to public. Once you do that, just on the URL, as we saw some time back, anybody can access your object with that public URL. Now, but you have to be really cautious whether you want to do that for your files or not, right? If suppose you are actually distributing a content which you do not want just anybody to access, right? Then in that case, you should not be making it public. Rather, there are other mechanisms like pre-signed URLs or via some particular website where with which you fetch the data or you fetch the object from S3 and then throw it to your user. Now it depends how do you want to use it, but both the things are possible in case of S3. Let's talk about the tiering on AWS S3, right? Not S3 alone, actually. I'll talk about Glacier also here. Now, sometimes people, though on the management console also, you see Glacier as a completely different service there, but Glacier is actually one more class of storage within S3, right? There are different classes of storage in S3. Earlier, it used to be only S3 Standard and Amazon Glacier. As time passed, new classes came up. So one more now is S3 Infrequent Access. So now we have got S3 Standard, we have got S3 Infrequent Access, and we have got Glacier, of course. There is one more, reduced redundancy, right? I'll try to talk about it after a while. But between these, it is very important to understand that when you should use which one. Now, we talked already about S3. S3 is being used for all the files which you want to, which is typically suitable for worm usage, WORM, write once, read multiple times, right? So all your static files which are part of your website actually suit well for the S3 standard. So you put your files there, use it frequently, really low cost of storage plus data transfer out. S3 standard is the right place to do that. Now think of the second use case. People come and talk that I want to save my data on S3. I want to take the advantage of cloud and hence want to save it on S3, but I do not use it very frequently. maybe it is my backup type of data, right? I take backup from my on-prem from my on-prem service, and then I want to save it on cloud. I would want to be I would want it to be reliable and durable, really, but it's not that I use it very frequently. Give me lower cost, right? So if that type of scenario you come across, you need to use the class which is S3 infrequent access storage. Okay, this particular class is designed to keep the data with the same durability of 11 nines, but the only condition is that it is supposed that you will be not accessing it frequently, and the pricing also changes a small amount. There is an additional retrieval fee with every request in case of infrequent access, whereas along with that, the per GB storage charge in case of infrequent access is actually lesser than S3 standard, right? So that was the case where you should use infrequent access. The third class is, of course, our Glacier, and Glacier should be used when you want to actually archive a data. As the name clearly says, archive the data. You should not expect to get your data or to access your data frequently. Any data which you put on Glacier goes and gets stored as vaults, and you will be able to, whenever you want to access the data from Glacier, you have to basically submit a job, and as the result, when that particular job gets completed, you will be getting the access to the data. We'll talk about it in a while. I want to tell you quickly about the lifecycle policies which are available in S3, and it is a really wonderful stuff actually in S3. Now, what happens is, let's take an example where you are probably storing log files from your application server on S3. So it happens that every day, once in a day, all your log files, really heavy log files, come from your application server and land to your S3 bucket. And you might want to keep it for some time to the standard storage, because if something goes wrong, somebody reports something, you would want to go through the logs and try to understand what caused this problem, right? So you go ahead and create a lifecycle policy on your S3 bucket where you say any file which comes here in this particular bucket, keep it in the S3 standard class for 30 days. After that, move it to Glacier, right? And then probably let it be there for 1 year, 365 days, and after that, delete it. Now, this lifecycle policy does two good things for you. First thing, it takes out the headache that you have to go and manually move it from one class to the other. Second thing, it essentially does this automatic movement and saves cost as well for you, right? Because Glacier's cost of storage is even lesser than that of S3. So now this thing is of course configurable. You may choose for how much time do you want to keep where, and just set the lifecycle policy accordingly, and things keep moving automatically thereafter, right? Really good stuff. Okay, with that we come to Glacier. I talked to you about this. Glacier is your cold storage, right? As the name says, Glacier, it's really cold, which means data would not be moving fast, right? So it should be used for all your archiving purposes, guys. Earlier, people used to do the tape stuff in their on-prem, but Glacier is actually challenging that. And lots of business, you might have heard about SoundCloud. All of you would have used. SoundCloud is like really good. They are really high on S3 and Glacier. They keep all, they use Glacier in order to save all their music which they have, all that music which they have got. Plus, they keep all the data on S3 for all the active usage, right? And you never find bandwidth issues there, right? That particular website works great, right? SoundCloud is a good example. Now, the storage cost for Glacier is as low as 0.007 GB per month, right? Per GB per month. It allows you to retrieve data within 3 to 5 hours. That's what I was talking about. Once you put some data to Glacier, you cannot just get it immediately. Whenever you want to retrieve the data, you need to submit a job basically, and then you need to continuously poll for that job completion, or you can probably use SNS to plug with the job. and when the job gets completed, you get notified by an email or through other notification means, and then you will be able to download your data, right? So that's how it is. Good things, you don't need you don't need any other separate infrastructure or hardware in order to do all this, so no additional investments, and you get an infinite scale, right? And at the same time, you pay only for what you use. So you do not have to plan that how many terabytes or petabytes of data you want to archive. You just want to archive, go ahead and do that. You do not have to do planning. You do not have to talk to anybody. Really good stuff. And with your lifecycle policies, you can even automate this stuff, the whole archiving thing. As we have buckets in case of Amazon S3, we have got vaults in case of Glacier. So vaults are these are the logical entities within which you go ahead and put your archive. Your archives are nothing but basic unit of data in Amazon Glacier. It could be documents, videos, zip files, anything of that sort. Organizations like pharmaceutical companies, other healthcare companies, they have this requirement of keeping the data for really long duration. So some of the countries, they need to keep the data for the last 10 years, 12 years, like that, right? Now, keeping it on-prem actually becomes really costly. So it makes sense to use a service like Glacier on Amazon, right? Which actually gives you unlimited amount of storage and this much durability at such a low cost, right? So in today's world, losing data is something which nobody wants, and for that purpose, this is the answer. All right. Now, how do you interact with Glacier data? There are two ways. Data can be archived by Amazon S3 to Glacier, and for that purpose, you should use Amazon S3 APIs to retrieve that as well. You can also use directly Glacier APIs, and you can put the data to Glacier and then retrieve it. Retrieve files are stored in Amazon Glacier by initiating a job request. This is what I was talking about. There are different ways in which you can submit the job. You can restore an archive by date range or perform a range retrieval. And then once you submit this job, as told already, it takes like sometimes 3 to 5 hours. It would take for that job to be complete and data to be available. You need to continuously poll for the job completion. Once it is complete, you'll be able to download the data. Some of the key concepts related to Glacier. So when you within the Glacier, you will have account, which is of course who is actually owning that particular vault and who is going to pay for it. Vault is the equivalent of your bucket. As you have buckets in S3, you've got vaults here, which is a container for all your archives. You can have up to 1,000 vaults per account. Archives are files or records which you are going to put. One file can be of maximum 40 TB of size, right? That's like really huge. In S3, you had 5 terabytes. Here, you have got 40 terabytes. And this, whenever you put files, an index of that is of course maintained, and it gets refreshed every 24 hours. Now, there is something really important while you plan to store your data in Glacier, that you should not do the mistake of storing smaller files there, right? So what I'm essentially trying to say here is that even if you have a lot of small files, it makes sense that you actually club them, probably put all of them together in a zip file and then try to put it in Glacier, because you have an overhead there, right? With every archive, you have 32 KB of associated overhead, right? And that would go. So let's take an example which I have put here on the slide for you. If you are trying to put something of 3.2 MB, that means you are spending 1% of the cost on overhead, right? But if you put something even smaller, right, like 1 KB, then 97% is going in overhead. Now, why is it important? Many of the times you might have lot of small images as part of a business. So let's say you have got millions of images. So the right method is not to try and save all those images of 100, 200, or 500 KB separately. Instead of that, try to club them, zip them into bigger files of MBs or GBs, and then go ahead and put it into a Glacier. That will save money for you. The pricing differs from service to service, and it's very important to understand that in what way which particular service works. I'll try to compare this here, and then we will try to discuss, and we'll understand if you have some questions. This is a concluding slide actually from my side where we are comparing the different classes. All right. So I talked to you that there are four classes now. Amazon S3 standard, which came up first, and it was there for a really long time. And then people came up with this demand that we actually have data, we want the same amount of durability, but we do not want to access it very frequently. That gave birth to the infrequent access, where your per GB cost is going to be lesser, but your retrieval costs are going to be more than the Amazon S3 standard. In terms of durability, same durability you have in both. Same goes with the Glacier, but of course, data which you put here should be rarely accessed, and there is a retrieval time of several hours, right? So when you are ready for that, then only put it in Glacier. So that it is really important to understand the difference which is there between S3 and Glacier. S3, of course, clearly is there for active storage, whereas Glacier is there for archiving. And guys, do not mix that, please. You have the fourth and recently introduced class, which is reduced redundancy. Now, I talked to you that in what manner Amazon S3 actually replicates, right, or maintains multiple copies of your data across different availability zones. So that is how it is. Minimum it would be replicated in 3 availability zones. That's how S3 is designed, right? But people also have this type of demand that I want to store some data on cloud. I want to get benefited from cheap storage on cloud, but that data is reproducible, right? In case if it's lost, I have mechanism to reproduce it, right? So for all that type of data, we've got fourth class introduced, which is reduced redundancy, where you get even cheaper amount of storage than the S3 standard and infrequent access, but here the number of replicas would be lesser than your S3 standard and infrequent access. That's why the durability is 99.99%, but you can be sure that object would not be lost. But of course, theoretically, it is lesser than S3 standard and infrequent access. So you have 4 classes in front of you, and the comparison in terms of cost as well, cost and durability as well. Now, I think with all the discussion which we had, it should be possible for you to take the decision that when to use which one. With that, I'll take a pause and I'll be open for any questions which you have. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mayank. Super, super thorough. And I'm sure that, I've got a few questions queued up here, but before we get to them really quickly, I am going to be a little bit selfish here, and I'm going to take over your screen for a very brief, about 60-second intermission. I'm going to ask everybody to bear with me here. There we go. So what you're seeing there is a real quick poll. This is a public-facing webinar, and what that means is that you don't need to be familiar with or a member of or training with Simplilearn right now to participate today. We're happy to have you here. We enjoy doing this. It's a great way for us to give back to the community and share the insights and the wisdom of our SMEs to help people advance their careers. We do a dozen or so of these every month, maybe more, across a variety of disciplines. Some of them obviously being AWS and cloud related. We also do data science, project management, Six Sigma, digital marketing, so forth. But our core service goes beyond just these webinars. The webinars are definitely valuable, but our core service is that we are a business and technology training provider. We provide over 400 web-based training courses in a wide spectrum of skill sets, including AWS, including cloud, Prince2, PMI, OMCP training courses. These courses are accredited by these third-party certifying bodies, and they are designed specifically to prepare you for the associated certification exams based on the very latest, of course, body of knowledge. All of these courses are designed and presented by our faculty of experienced professional trainers, and you get structured courses, you get video lessons, you get resources and hands-on practical experience to successfully prepare yourself to pass the related certification test. If you need it, you'll get lab exercises, you'll get simulation exams, you'll get access to extra platforms and software to run experiments and get hands-on practice with these skill sets. You can expand your skill set into new areas, or you can enhance the skill sets that you've already got with additional trainings and certification. You'll also, of course, get access to active moderated forums, and you can interact directly with the faculty and other students. There are a variety of ways to join and participate that give you different kinds of learning experiences, either where you're self-guided or where you are participating in a live virtual classroom where you get to interact with a faculty member. So if you want to learn more, just tick the appropriate box. We will have somebody get in touch with you and talk with you about the sort of training that's available and help you find the right solution for you to meet your personal career goals. Thank you for indulging me. It's my personal contractual obligation to make sure you have that information. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll now, and we can get back to the real reason we're all here, which is, of course, to learn more about AWS and Glacier. We're back, Mayank, just so you know, to seeing your screen again. All right. So again, thank you for that. I'm going to tackle the very first question myself because it's a very common one. And the question is the recording of the webinar or the slide deck available for us to see later? And the answer is yes, usually. Most webinars are recorded. I can see here in my dashboard that this webinar is being recorded for us right now. And they are produced, reviewed and edited and produced and put onto various places. You may find it on the Simplilearn site, of course, but you might also want to run over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel there. And very often the recordings of these webinar events are also posted at YouTube for you to review. So please feel free to do that. All right. So Mayank, I've got a few questions here, and we are at 9:18, so we've got enough time to tackle a few of them. 9:18 my time, of course, 18 minutes after the hour in any case. So regarding S3, I've heard in the past of something called a US standard region. Is that still applicable? Does it limit my ability to be able to use Amazon S3 outside of the US, let's say, or Europe? Are there any limitations? Is the US standard region still a thing?
Okay, all right. Guys, when this started, yes, it started with that name for the US standard, but US standard is nothing but your North Virginia region. So you would be aware that there are different regions in AWS. You have California, North California, you have Oregon, you have North Virginia, Tokyo, Singapore, all of this. US standard is nothing but North Virginia, and there is no difference when it comes to S3 bucket if you create in North Virginia or you create in Oregon or in any other region. So there is no difference essentially. It's just that there was a different naming convention earlier, but now everything is referred as to their as their respective region name.
Perfect. Well, that's good to know. So there is no limitation. It's just kind of an unfortunate naming nomenclature. Yep. Very good. Yep. Here we have a question. And you may have answered this already, by the way. Sometimes these questions come up before you get to a certain point. But does the AWS Management Console support Amazon Glacier?
When it comes to posting the files through the Management Console, you will be able to put it using the lifecycle policies, which we talked about. So you have got lifecycle policies in S3. Using that, you'll be able to move files from S3 to Glacier. Other than that, you will have to try and use the different Glacier APIs and post your files to Glacier.
Very good, thank you. I hope that answers your question. And then we have, if I work in the financial sector, has AWS been assessed based on financial services regulations that are related to the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC? Okay.
Yeah, these type of questions we get many times. People related to banking and financial sectors, sometimes also, these life sciences, drug, pharmaceutical organizations, they'll have their worries before going to cloud, and of course in the similar manner to AWS as well. So there, what I would like to explain is, AWS actually meets most of the stringent demands or the certifications or accreditations which are there in the world. There is a dedicated page on AWS website. you can just Google AWS accreditations and certifications. You'll get a dedicated page on their website where you'll be able to see all the possible all the possible certifications which they have. They have all these things like PCI, DSS, and HIPAA compliance and all of that. One more thing to note there, AWS has got a dedicated region for US government called AWS GovCloud. And there are workloads of NASA running on AWS. Many of the US government organizations, US government departments run their load on AWS. So that kind of gives the guarantee to you kind of that it is good to run anything which you want. And of course, if you want to go into the details, you can go on that particular web page and look at all the certifications which AWS has got.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And particularly, mentioning HIPAA too. So not only the financial services industry, but the health services industry. HIPAA is in particular a huge issue there. So that's good to know. Let's see here. Let's find another question. With regard to certification in the job market, what advantage does AWS training and certification offer me in the job market? Does it truly increase hireability? Do employers really look for certified experts over non-certified, or is practical experience more valuable than the certification?
Okay, now this is a really good question, and whoever asked that, thanks for bringing it up. A certification alone, just for the sake of certification, is not going to give you anything, right? But at the same time, if you have two people who have got good practical knowledge, and one out of them is certified and another one is not, you can be sure that the employer is going to pick the one who is certified, right? That adds that extra badge on your sleeves, I would say. Now, that is just a general observation. In addition to that, when it comes to AWS certification, the good thing in case of AWS is that the AWS certifications have still got that reputation in the market, right? The amount of professionals which are needed in the market, compared to that, we have got very less professionals currently. That's point number one. Second thing is AWS certifications have got a reputation, and the reason being, I would say, the way they maintain their certification, they keep bringing the change, which actually makes it difficult at times to pass it, right? And hence you should have real knowledge to clear the certification, right? All of us would know about some other certifications which are very easy. You can just go anytime and just read somewhere and pass it. Compared to that, AWS is going to be difficult. Unless until you have got practical knowledge and you have done things well, you would not be able to get AWS certified. And once you are, of course, it increases your chances and value in the job market. People are going to value you a lot more. And it is, trust me, if you go and Google about it and try to find out which are the top top paid certifications in the world, then you are going to find AWS in the top 3, that I'm sure of.
So if someone does have this certification, they should certainly be including it, obviously, on their resume, on their LinkedIn, and so forth. So definitely letting potential clients or employers know that that's the case, and making sure that it's visible on their various profiles. Let's see here. Well, this is a sort of a related question. If I'm learning AWS and pursuing a certification, is it also helpful to be knowledgeable or certified in other platforms like Azure or Google? Is there an advantage for professionals that are familiar with multiple platforms? And I'm thinking maybe particularly if a company is migrating from one platform to another. Is there an opportunity there for folks who are multiply certified?
The answer to this is yes and no, right? Both. The way it works, guys, is depending. I would actually say that you should decide this based on the years of experience you have, right? Now, people with mostly up to 8-10 years of experience, I think for them it would make a lot of sense to be certified and have depth of knowledge on one platform. But as you grow further, it makes sense that that you actually grow your knowledge base, and you should be knowledgeable on 2, 3, three platforms. So now if you take the current scenario, of course AWS is the leading cloud provider, followed by Azure, and after that probably the Google Cloud, right? So that's how it is. Now as you grow further in your career, just sticking to one would not give you a lot. It would make sense that you actually are aware of top 2 3 things in the market, so that when it comes to designing the strategy for your organization or for any new product, you can choose the best, right? Of course, there would be providers which would be on number one, number two, but then every provider has got something really good which can be used in your product. And unless until you are aware and you are knowledgeable on that, you would not be able to propose that as part of your organization. So my suggestion would be, as you grow further, it would really help to be certified and knowledgeable on other platforms as well.
Well, that makes good sense. We talk about sometimes being a T-shaped professional, right, where you have a horizontal understanding of a variety of skill sets deeply enough to be able to have the vocabulary and discuss them reasonably, and then deep knowledge in one or two specialties. So that makes sense. Maybe you're a super specialist on AWS or Glacier, but you have some working understanding of some of the other platforms as well to broaden your skill set and make yourself just that much more valuable in the marketplace. All right, well, we're at 9:28 my time, 28 minutes after the hour. So even though we started a little bit late, I don't see any other questions in the system. So I think that we're still able to finish up at our allotted, originally scheduled time. I do want everybody who's still with us to take a look in the chat module. You'll see that I shared a few links with you there. One of them is a link to the course page on Simplilearn for the AWS courses that are available. I've also linked you to the Career Edge page dealing with AWS and Cloud. There you're going to find not only courses that are relevant, but also free resources like articles and ebooks and white papers and that sort of thing that you can access if it's valuable. Just for fun, I also shared a link to Amazon's FAQ page on Glacier, and from there you can click around and also get into the FAQs relevant to S3. So if you've got additional questions, you might find that some of them are addressed there. And then the last thing is just a link to the Career Edge page, the top-level Career Edge page on our Simplilearn site, where you can click around and find information on upcoming webinars, resources, white papers, and so forth, across all of the specialties that we address. So from that page, you can filter by cloud or by Microsoft or by digital marketing or whatever other areas of interest you might have, and find additional resources. So with that said, Mayank, thank you so much. Do you have anything, any last thing to add there? Do you have anything you want me to share?
Yeah, I think it has been wonderful, guys. Just some of the two words from my side would be, this is the right time. This is the right time to get into cloud computing. And if you are planning to do the next big thing in your career, it is time to go ahead and learn cloud computing, and learn it in a way that you will be able to do it. Practical work is very, very important. So it is going to be some amount of theory and a lot of practicals. As you do that, you are going to learn it. Go learn that, get certified, and do the next jump in your career. All the best.